Hi, I'm Miss Tyler, and welcome to Context for Kids, episodes 19 and 20, Torah portions, Terumah and Tetzavah. And I apologize for not having a Torah portion last week. I was coughing and coughing and coughing and sniffing and sniffing and sniffing. And it really sounded bad on the microphone. As a matter of fact, it didn't sound bad. It sounded really disgusting. I figured it was better to wait until I could actually talk for a few minutes straight without doing it than to put something out last week. But this week we're going to be talking about mystery religions. And yeah, I gotta tell you a funny story about something that happened to me about 10 days ago, a couple days before I was getting ready to record the last Torah portion. Most of my property is out in the woods. Okay, I mean we have a little place around our house, and we have a big place where the power lines go through. But most of our land is woods, and you get that a lot in southern Missouri. So we've got a lot of land we can't really do anything with, except there's a lot of berry bushes, which is awesome. Anyway, so I was pulling down dead branches out of the tree and everything, and one of them hooked my glasses, sent it flying. And my sons weren't around. And so I was actually on the ground, feeling around with my hands, down on my hands and knees, looking for these glasses. And try as I might, I couldn't find them. But I'll tell you something. One of the meddling kids next door, they took a picture of me. Take a look. Okay. So I guess it wasn't really me, but because we're talking about mysteries, I had to put in a plug for one of my favorite TV shows when I was a kid. It came out about the same time as I was born, I think like in 1968 or 1969. And they had these mysteries, except you know what? It wasn't really a mystery because every week they had a monster or a ghost. But I don't know why they didn't figure out, at least after the first season, because it was always just a guy dressed up like a ghost or a monster. The only mystery was who's dressed up like the ghost or the monster, but these kids, they were still scared week after week, at least Shaggy. And I'm not sure about Shaggy. Anyway, so I'll be back in just a minute, and we're going to talk about mysteries and why God purposely designed His religion to not look like the mysterious religions of the rest of the ancient Near East. So, I'll be right back. Alright, so here we are, episode 1920, Terumah, Tetzavah, and we're going to be going from Exodus 25:1 to 30:10. It's two Torah portions, and they're different from the Torah portions that we've done in the past, because it's all God telling Moses what's going to happen in the makeup and the building of the tabernacle. Now, first of all, what is a tabernacle? How would the ancient peoples have understand it? Well, really, a tabernacle is a traveling temple. And what is a temple? A temple is a palace for a god. That's why we see it so elaborate. This is for honoring God. This is His portable palace. And remember that unlike all of the other ancient Near Eastern cultures, they didn't have a king. Moses wasn't their king. Aaron wasn't their king. When Moses and Aaron died, Joshua didn't become their king. In fact, they didn't get a king for hundreds of years later, and until King Saul, and then King David, and then King David's descendants through his son Solomon. And, excuse me. So God was their king. So God needed a palace. And it's incredibly ornate, incredibly fancy, and this is to honor Him. Now I want you to remember that. So we start out the chapter with, and Terumah means free will offering. God isn't going to have His temple built on taxes on the backs of the poor, okay? It's free will, whatever somebody wants to bring. And remember, they just looted Egypt. So they all, they got some bling going on, and they're going to pour out thanks to God, and they are going to bring so much that at some point later on we'll see that the builders say, whoa, stop bringing stuff. It's just piling up. We have all we need. We have more than we need. Please stop. So wouldn't it be nice if the government did that? But we're not going to talk about that. All right. So why does God start spelling everything out in such detail? He talks about the size of everything. He talks about the purpose of the things. He talks about what they're made of. He talks about the priesthood and what the priests will do. Why does he do that? And well, we started out before talking about mystery, and the Greek word for mystery is mysterion, and it doesn't mean something necessarily that's a secret. That's our modern way of looking at mysterion or mysterious. Okay, mysterion was something you were initiated into. It was a sort of it was a religion. It was something where you had insiders and you had outsiders, and the outsiders didn't know what was going on, but the insiders did. That is a mystery religion. Now, everybody knew what the mystery religions were, okay, but not everyone knew what they did. Just like throughout the ancient Near East, people didn't know what went on inside the temples. You know, in Egypt, only 1% of the population was literate, and those were the priests. And it might have been 10%, but it wasn't very much. Now, that was the priests and the government workers. All right, the scribes and those kind of things. Again, not to be confused with the scribes that we see in the times of Messiah. That word scribe means something differently and totally different. All right, so we have got in the temples things going on, and nobody on the outside knows. Now, how did they keep them a secret? They kept them a secret because they were only written down on the cuneiform tablets that were deposited in the temple. Now, only the priests can read them, so they don't have to worry about people on the outside reading them and finding out their secret incantations and their secret rituals. But also, nobody but the priests and maybe the king is allowed in the temple precincts. Okay, that is different than we see with the tabernacle in the wilderness, where although certain parts of the tabernacle are only for the priests, and the people of Israel can actually bring sacrifice into the outer courtyard. All right, so all through we see God telling them, tell Moses, tell the children of Israel this, tell the children of Israel that, blah, 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 blah. They need to know these things. All right? Now let's talk, and the reason for that was because he didn't want anything that was done in his worship to be clouded in secrecy. He didn't want there to be any mistake that there were pagan things going on in that tent. And so a lot of the things that happened on the outside, and the things that happened on the inside were clearly spelled out by Moses in the scripture, so that anyone, whether they're Israelite or foreigner, could know exactly what was going on. Now, let's talk about, for example, in most temples, not in all temples, they had like a throne. I'm talking about the big city god temples, and they had an idol on that throne. And of course, the idol was dressed, bathed, fed. You know, we've talked about that. We talked about that in Vayigash, Idolatry 101, and in a few other ones. So, you know, they had an idol who was filled with the essence of God, and they would do incantations to get the essence into the god. They would take care of the god. They would feed the god. They would give the god wine. But what did God say? God says, no graven images. The ark is my footstool. You know, I will be enthroned on the cherubim. But all of his sacrifices were outside, and they were burned to a crisp. Why? God wanted to show them, look, bring tribute to me the way that the pagans bring tribute to the gods. But I'm not eating that. I don't need to eat. You're going to burn it to me. It's going to be a sweet-smelling aroma. It's going to be like we're having a meal together, and I'm going to enjoy it. I'm going to enjoy what you brought to me. I'm going to kind of bask in your love and adoration. But I'm not eating this. And the priests, when they carried out their priestly duties, it was in silence. Why? Because all over the ancient Near East, priests did incantations, and you never see rituals and words. I mean, rituals, yes, but they're all out in the open. But words, you don't see any mumbo-jumbo incantations. No, the priest carried out their duties in silence. And that was unlike anyone else's priests. All right, so let's look at, so we've got the ark. And the ark is the footstool of God. It says so all through Scripture. And there's no idol on it, unlike pagan temples. Oh, by the way, on each side of the ark, there were cherubim, carved gold or beaten gold images. And yet they weren't graven images. They weren't idols. They weren't there to be worshipped, and so they didn't break that second commandment. You know, my friend Ryan White, I'll give you his site. He wrote an excellent article about the cherubim this week for the Torah portion, so you're going to want to check that out, parents. All right, and let's see. God always told them what everything was made of. There wasn't any wood from a sacred tree. It was acacia. You know, the gems on the high priest's garment, they weren't for magical gem properties. They were for honor and beauty, to honor God, because his high priest really needs to look better than the high priests of all the other nations. All right? Let's see. You'll notice that when they're talking about the construction of the tabernacle, you'll see that the things on the outside are mostly bronze. Like the altar of ascending offering on the outside and the brass sea. Those things are bronze. But the closer we get into God's throne room, the Holy of Holies, the more we're getting to silver and then to gold, and pure gold. You know, not 11, 12 karat gold. No, pure gold. Everything pure gold. Nothing tainted at all in God's throne room. All right, something else we see where God is emptying all of his rituals from the things that were done in the ancient Near East. You know, whenever the animals were burnt up, you would remove the, or whatever, whenever you were offering up an animal, they made sure to mention that the entrails, the fat, the kidney, and the appendage on the liver were burned up. Now, why did they do that? I mean, why point that out? Well, in the ancient Near East, they had something called extispicy. All right? And it's divination. I'm going to put it up on the screen. They would use the guts of animals and usually a sheep in order to talk with the gods, in order to tell fortunes, in order to all that stuff, okay? And so God is saying, whoa, no, those get burned up. We are not doing that. You are not, no, that is not how you talk to me. Now this is a vocabulary word here. I'm going to tell you how to remember it. Okay, I made up a very bad joke. So, guy walks into a bar and he sees a diviner sitting there at the table, okay, and he's got sheep guts in front of him. And so the guy walks up to him and he says, hey, you know, will you tell my fortune? And the diviner says, hey, well, how do you want your guts? Regular or extra spicy? Okay, we're gonna forget that happened. All right, so God does not want anything about his religion to be a mystery. Nothing, no mysteria, nothing that people have to be specially initiated into. Remember that mysterion, mystery means initiation. It's something that outsiders don't know and insiders know. Now, the most famous mystery religion, probably that there ever was Mithraism in ancient Rome. Mithraism, the Roman Mithraism, which is nothing like Persian Mithraism, okay? Roman Mithraism was practiced between the 1st and 4th centuries AD. And, you know, because it was, remember I told you about Egypt where they would write things down, they deposit them in a temple, and, you know, we only have them because, you know, we found them a long time later. Well, no one involved with Mithraism ever wrote anything down, so we know almost nothing about the Mithraic mysteries. Now, we have some things from, like, there's a writer, and he talked about, he wasn't in it, but he was kind of on the outside, and he talked about how the initiates of the Mysterion, they met in caves. All right? And when they dig up Mithraism, which is the place where they meet the archaeologists, they see that they're either caves or they are rooms that were decorated like caves. And in these caves and in these rooms, you will find artwork. See, the only things that we have to tell us anything about Mithraism are pottery, inscriptions like on tombs saying who was a Mithraicist. Really have almost no information. But we've got artwork. And we've got three main types of artwork, and they tell the story of Roman Mithras. So I'm going to put them up here for you to look at. Now first, we have Mithras being born. Now Roman Mithras, and I think Persian Mithras as well, was born full grown, bare naked, out of a rock, and you'll see that I actually covered him up a little, but I couldn't find a fig leaf, so I used a maple leaf. So now this lesson is about Canadian Mithras. So we've got him being full born out of a rock. That rock was his mother. Okay, no father. That was his mother. We don't have a birthday. You know, his mother couldn't really bake him a cake anyway. So we got that. And then the most common piece of artwork we see about Mithras is Mithras slaying the bull with the help of a dog and a snake and a scorpion. And he's wearing a funny hat. So, no accounting for fashion taste. But that's the second. That's the second piece of artwork. Now the third piece of artwork is Mithras, having slain the bull, he and Sol Invictus were laying on the skin of the cowhide, the bull hide, and they're eating the bull, and there are these twins there too. And I can't remember exactly what they were. They were like demigods or something, and so he's eating there with Sol Invictus, and he is Sol, but he's not Sol, and you know, these mystery religions didn't really need to make sense. They liked him anyway. But you know, we believe things that don't make sense all the time, like, you know, why was the mystery gang always chasing down fake ghosts and never even bothered them that they had a talking dog? I just don't get. We're gonna move on. We're gonna move on. So we've got this anyway. So we've got this mystery religion. You know, over almost 2,000 years later, we know almost nothing about it, and so a lot of people speculate. A lot of people make up stories about it. But if you really want to read about what we do believe we know about Mithras, the best author is a man named Roger Beck, parents. And I wrote a blog on theancientbridge.com last week about Mithraism and how it relates to them being a nation of priests. And so check that out, and I've got some really cool links from Roger Beck, and he'll talk about what we know about Mithraism. And when you look at that kind of thing, it really sets apart how different the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob is. I mean, there's nothing secretive. You know, the people knew what the priests were doing. The priests weren't doing incantations. The priests weren't practicing divination. There was no idol on the altar. The offerings were burnt out in the yard so everyone could see that there was no idol inside that needed to eat. Everything was on the up and up. Everything was written down. So people don't have to go back and say, well, I wonder what they were doing in that tent. I bet they were up to no good pagan stuff. No, because God is not a God of... He's not a God of Mysterion. He's not a God of special levels of initiation like you see in Mormonism or in the Masons. Okay? We're not not only are we not looking 1,600 years later and not knowing what the heck really the Mithraisists did, what happened in the Mithras cave really did stay in the Mithras cave. But we know everything that happened in the worship of the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. No secret mysteries. No, everything above board. That's our God. His priesthood was above board and everyone knew what they were doing. Everyone knew what the qualifications were for the priesthood. Everyone knew what the furniture was made of. Everyone knew why. Everyone knew. No secret knowledge. Because our God isn't a God, our God's a God of equity. And yes, there was a high priest, and in some ways he was above everybody else, but he was held to more stringent standards. It wasn't that he had greater privileges. It's that he had to hold himself to higher standards so that he could approach the throne once a year and then go into the holy place, to take care of what was going on in there. Our God is not anything like the gods of the nations. He is just awesome, and he doesn't need to hide any secrets because he has nothing to be ashamed of in his worship. Anyway, so that is this week. Next week we're going to go to the Torah portion that bothers me more than any other Torah portion. That is the golden calf. So here God has laid out for Moses everything. The directions for the tabernacle, the qualifications for the priesthood. And next week God is going to send Moses down the mountain to deal with treason and idolatry. It's not going to be pretty. But we're going to look at it in context, and I hope that I can teach you some things that you didn't know. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed today's lesson. I know it was kind of a weird one because I didn't have any little funny laws or anything to talk about, and I told some bad jokes. But I hope that you learned. I love you, I'm praying for you, and I want you to have fun this week studying the scriptures together. Have a great week.